Speech Pitch by ISCA SAC.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Speech Pitch. I'm Paige, and today I have with me Roger Moore, who recently won the ISCA Medal, and we're very excited to have you with us, an award winner. How do you feel?
I'm pretty elated, to be honest, yeah.
Did you find out recently, or do you find out long before? How much time do you have to prepare? You got a big keynote?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I found out, I think, in the new year, so near Christmas. So in some sense, I've had a long time to prepare, but it's been pretty hectic the last few weeks trying to get this together.
Yeah, I know you've done keynotes and presentations other places, but did this one feel a little different?
Yes, very much so, because this is, I think when you're talking to friends, it's always very different from when you're just talking to strangers, or a room full of students. But when it's your own community, you feel obliged to say something sensible.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like you said something sensible. We even were in the general meeting yesterday, and your keynote came up several times, inspiring people, and most of the comments we had there seemed to be inspired by your keynote.
Excellent.
So that's
well, that's very, very good to hear.
Yeah, that's great hearing that, you've made a difference and made people think a little bit. So hope
Good.
that feels good.
That was my objective.
Was your objective? Yeah, that's great.
I was asked to go back, since I have a long history, and to sort of somehow take a journey through that would be helpful to others. And that's what I tried to do.
Yeah, and do you feel like, did you feel like it was something you had to, you already had an idea of some big message through your work, or did you have to kind of really sit down and take a look at it, and then that came to you later?
No, it's pretty much based on a lot of my recent thinking, and I incorporated a lot of ideas which I've given individual talks and individual papers, and I kind of, the main issue I had was how to integrate it into a sensible narrative and fit it in the time available. I could have probably talked about it for 3 or 4 hours, but getting it down to the sort of essential messages was quite tricky.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think that obviously you evolved a little bit. Is this something that if you were in the audience when someone like me just finishing your PhD and you're listening to yourself talking now, do you think you had like sproutings of these ideas, or are these things that you thought totally differently then and you've just learned this all along the way and it's come later?
So I think I did incorporate the various points in my talk where I had an epiphany moment where my thinking completely changed. I've had more epiphany moments than the ones that I mentioned yesterday. So yes, I mean, if you're paying attention to your field and your science, then there will come moments when you think, okay, the direction I'm going is not the right one, or something is revealed to you when you realize, actually, there's more to this than I thought. And that was the final one I was trying to put over.
Yeah, I think that it's something that early career researchers forget. It's something that you're like, oh, I do this one thing and other people are doing this one thing. And this thing has got me, I seem fairly successful in this thing and it's got me attention. I may be interested in this new thing, but maybe it'll be less successful. And because I'm early career, I can't afford to do something too controversial, and you get worried. And I think it's something it's hard as an early career researcher to think about that. And do you have any thoughts or advice on making big leaps and changing your opinions?
I think it's a complex question because it depends entirely on the context in which you're operating, and it's not just to do with your work life, it's your family life and your whole environment and where you are and whether you're prepared, whether it involves a change in direction of where you are or whether you've got to move to the other side of the planet. There are a lot of things which would influence that. I mean, the big moment that I mentioned yesterday was generating those results and deciding to resign my job. That was a pretty big moment. But I was kind of ready for that, I guess. It just felt it felt like the right thing to do, but it was a big move and didn't just affect me, it affected the family. It was a big thing. So you can't give general advice on this. I think everybody has to make an individual choice based on the situation they find them in. But it's tough. It can be tough. I think the important thing is you have to maintain your own sanity and happiness somehow. And if you find yourself stuck and becoming unhappy, then you probably should do something about it.
Yes, I definitely feel that. Sorry to anyone working in North America. I really loved it, and there's a lot of amazing work coming out of there. But I was getting tired of the work culture over there, and I was like, no, I gotta do something different. And I came to Europe, and I'm happy for it. And it was hard, and there was a lot of things that come along with that. But yes, I'm definitely, you need to take that leap for your sanity, and I think it's something that researchers forget a lot, because especially again early career, you're so focused on, I want to get that like tenure. I want to 1 year, one day, that's my future, and this is where I have to be, and this is the path I have to take to it. And you forget about yourself as a human being, and it's hard. And I think that that's an important thing, because I think as speech researchers, treating yourself as a human being helps you treat your participants as human beings, helps you think about human beings in the world, and then produce better research to help other human beings. And I think if we become so focused on academia, producing things that academics want, and not about life outside and looking out your window once in a while, you can't find what needs to be done there.
Indeed. I mean, and of course, this community is not just academics, right? This community consists of many different individuals in all kinds of different career positions, and transiting between one and the other are options that you can take from time to time. And I think people mature, people change. They have interests one moment, and a few years later maybe slightly different. So there are a lot of conditioning variables. But I think if you're prepared to take a big risk.
I have a question that maybe and probably is difficult to ask, but I want to see your opinion on it. It was coming up a lot in a general meeting. It was spurred a little bit by your talk, and it was about how you'd mentioned that speech science and speech technology needs to come together, and everyone basically stood up and said that they agree. And then we sat and said, does anyone have ideas how to make this happen? And no one had any. Do you have? Do you want to talk about?
That's interesting you say that, because I didn't actually say that. What I actually said was that for many years there'd been this idea that we should be bringing speech science and speech technology together. And what I then went on to say is, actually, both communities need to be looking outside. That was the main message. Somehow that's been missed, because a lot of the feedback I've been having is, oh yeah, speech science and speech technology. I was often called upon to spearhead bringing speech science and speech technology together. I mean, the whole creation of ISCA and all that is all about that. And that was an epiphany moment, which, as I say, some people seem to have missed, which was precisely, that is not enough. So for sure, the speech scientists and the speech technologists need to understand each other's areas. But actually, I think the bigger problems now, or the challenges that we need to investigate, and the potential solutions and ways of thinking about things, lie outside of those domains. And one of the messages I was trying to put over is that spoken language is founded on much more generalistic, multimodal, interactive behaviors that many living organisms exhibit. And we need to understand what those foundational principles are and figure out how spoken language rests on that. And that, I believe, will remove this huge dependence on ridiculous amounts of data.
Yeah, I mean, I said I wouldn't talk too much about robotics, but here I'm going to go talk about robotics. And Yeah, I think that this is a part where I was talking to some other HRI people at lunch, and robotics is really far from speech science. There are some of us that bridge the two, but we tend to not like to talk to each other too much. And then speech, robotics and HRI tend to have these people that work with anthropologists, sociologists, even some people working with animals. And I think this could be a really beautiful bridge because robotics are doing that, robotics are doing speech. Speech needs to make that hop to then look at these human studies and human interaction the way robots are doing. And I think it could be a nice bridge.
Yeah, I think there are lots of nice bridges, but I think so the situation I think right now is that we've basically got people like you and me who are interested in this cross-disciplinary stuff. It's just a sort of fascination that there are these different aspects. But what the reality, and I'll speak for myself here, is that you end up with people acting in other people's disciplines rather poorly because they don't understand them fully. So we've got roboticists doing rather poor speech work. We've got speech people grabbing the first robot they happen to get their hands on and assuming that's robotics. And so we're all doing very bad jobs in other people's disciplines right now. So somehow we've got to break that down. We've got to get to a point where we have individuals who are thoroughly trained across a broad range of disciplines. And of course, science tends not to work that way. Science tends to create very, very narrow levels of expertise. So I guess a real question here is it possible to have individuals with sufficient depth of knowledge across all the different areas that actually really matter when it comes to something as incredible as spoken language?
Yes, for sure. I definitely feel that struggle myself as someone who worked interdisciplinarily, because I feel like when I go to an AI conference, I'll never know as much as the people that work only on AI. And when I go to something, I've gone to Society of Affective Science, I'll never know as much about psychology as a psychologist. But I know enough about both, and you really feel lost and maybe a little smaller than the people when you're in their domain. But I think we need to realize how important people that try to branch out a little bit more and maybe support people trying to branch out a little bit more. And I think institutionally even support people trying to do that a little more.
Somehow, yes, we need to create an environment where this kind of work is appreciated and realize that it's going to be early days and there are going to be a lot of mistakes and naive approaches. But I don't see an alternative. Just because science divides into disciplines and we carve up the world that way, that doesn't mean to say that's the way the world is. And when we come to living organisms and especially human beings and especially spoken language, we can't assume that it is a discipline in its own right because it straddles, it is impacted by so many aspects of what it is to be a living system in this, universe. So.
Yes, for sure. I think there's something big to be said as far as making. I think a lot of it comes to decision making when you come up with your research plans and decision making from a high level, from a human level, and not from what are other people doing? Where am I going to get the most impact in my field right now? And thinking about, but what is it going to be used for? And when is the world going to use it at some point? And that will bring us back to this idea of creating things for humanity, I think.
Yeah. And so I've just stepped out of one of the mentorship events, which was really, really interesting, chatting to some of the bright young students we've got. And we ended up talking about the huge spectrum of different types of activity, from pure science right through to the most applied development work and companies. And so we have a field where all of that is going on, and yet we somehow sort of almost lump it all together, and as if everybody's supposed to be contributing to everything. And the reality is there are some people who are very, very interested in impact and developing, making a use case real and solving a real world problem. But there are other people who are interested in the behavior of what is happening and understanding it. And these aspects obviously need to inform each other. But not everybody has to do everything.
Yes. Yeah, that's really great to hear about the mentoring event. There's so many different events going on at Interspeech all the time, and you look at the schedule and see all these things happening at the same time and trying to choose. Have you seen anything at this Interspeech in particular that's new or different, or that I'm sure you've been to lots of Interspeeches in the past, that's been really exciting specifically with this one?
To be honest, after my keynote yesterday, I've been pinned to the wall. And I've only managed to get into one session earlier. It's like just before this, where I was checking out on a poster where a student who actually came up to me. He desperately wanted to tell me about his work, and it's on heart rate. And I'm very interested you remember, so in my talk yesterday, I talked about coupled systems and how a more interesting model of the way in which interaction is taking place is essentially one where systems are coupled rather than just sending messages backwards and forwards. And I'm very intrigued by this as a metaphor. And just a few weeks ago, I was at a meeting on joint action, where there's a lot of interest in how coupled systems actually function. And there's musicians, for example, how do musicians synchronize their behavior? A lot of psychologists asking people to tap their fingers at the same time and what have you. And there was a lot of talk about heart rate.
Yeah.
So I was looking to find out more about it. And so already at this conference, randomly, a guy walks up to me and tells me all about heart rate. So that's very, very exciting. But at this point,
Yeah.
that's the only paper I've actually managed to get to see.
Okay, so disclaimer for listeners, only do a keynote if you're ready to be too famous to see anything at Interspeech.
I rely on people telling me about the good papers.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Roger, for speaking with us, taking
Thank you,
time out of
Paige.
your busy Interspeech schedule.
Thanks.
So that was all, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your time here. And thanks for tuning into this bonus episode. We may be interviewing your favorite speech researchers in the future, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow the ISCA on X and LinkedIn to stay updated. Till then, have fun.
Speech pitch by ISCA